Hello everyone, this is Jason from Primetime Aquatics. I've got a cool video in store for you today. We're going to look at some really awesome options for some species only tanks. These are fish that I have kept in tanks before and really enjoyed that species only feel to an aquarium. And we're going to organize this by tank size. We're going to start with the smaller tanks and slowly work our way up to some of the larger ones. And so no matter what size aquarium you have, there'll be something in this video for you. Really appreciate you being here. Hope you enjoy the video. Now, two things before we actually get into the inhabitants. Thing number one is Joanna did a video on her channel, The Smallscape. I will link that down in the description below as well as in the upper right-hand corner. Check that out because she was looking at it from a different angle. For a single fish, what could you do for certain aquariums? Really cool video. Check that out. Also, if you are looking for more information on some of the fish that we feature in this video, want to know how to care for them, check out the description below. There'll be a bunch of species profiles for you there. Now, let's get started. The 5-gallon aquarium. Yes, let's go on the smaller side. Now, if you're new to fish keeping, I will say these smaller aquariums like the 5-gallon can be a little bit harder to regulate water parameters, so just keep that in mind. But for the experienced fish keeper, I've got a couple of options for you there. One of them I think would be really cool, and that's the shrimp. Shrimp stay tiny. They make a great species only aquarium because they're going to inhabit all different parts of the aquarium. They're going to be crawling on all your decorations and your plants. And there are so many different varieties of shrimp. In our fish room, we've kept blue dream and cherry shrimp and pumpkin shrimp and all different types and different colors. Now, I highly recommend if you're going to do a species only aquarium for your shrimp, make it one color type because especially with the Neocaridina, if you add in multiple colors, if they start to hybridize, usually you wind up with brownish shrimp and clear shrimp, and they don't stay true to their color form. And so if you're going to do species only with the shrimp, let's go ahead and just choose one that you really, really like. Again, 5 gallons. Now, obviously, if they fit in a 5-gallon, you can put them in larger tanks later on. In fact, the 40-gallon breeder that we have right back here behind me is nothing but blue dream shrimp for the most part. The other option for a 5-gallon aquarium, and I really like this one, this is the Florida least killifish, otherwise known as Hederienda formosa. This is a really cool fish, and they stay absolutely tiny. The females are actually the larger ones. They max out at maybe 3/4 of an inch. The males at about a 1/2 inch. So this is one of the smallest freshwater fish in the world. In fact, from my last check, it was the 7th smallest freshwater fish. And these are really great for a 5-gallon aquarium. And now one of the things I'm trying to do with these fish is I want to have fish that are going to inhabit all parts of the aquarium. They're going to be active. They're going to show some color or really interesting personality. And the Florida least killifish do all of those things. Maybe they don't have the greatest color in the world, but they do have the gold variety as well. These are live bears. They will breed in your aquarium, and since they're so small and not super fast fish, they're perfectly appropriate for a 5-gallon tank. Next up on our list is the 10-gallon. Now, obviously, you can keep all the fish we just talked about in the 5-gallon in a 10-gallon. You just keep more of them. But for the 10-gallon, I don't think we can have a species-only video, and not mention the guppy. I think the guppy and the endlers, too, are great fish. They're full of activity, and so these are fish that are going to inhabit all parts of your aquarium. They're going to be full of color. Lots of different varieties, and you can mix and match them together. They often breed in a 10-gallon aquarium pretty prolifically too, so keep that in mind. People always ask, hey, how many should I start out with? Well, in a 10-gallon, get a couple males and maybe 6 to 8 females and watch as those fish start to populate your aquarium. But this can be a really exciting fish to keep in that size tank. Other types of fish for a 10-gallon, the tiger limia. Now, this is a less common live bear, but it's still really cool, has a really fun personality, and offers a kind of an unusual greenish gold to your aquarium. Another potential option for your 10-gallon, that would be the rice fish. Rice fish, some of them have that really nice, shiny, almost blue-like silver iridescence. Now, these fish are unusual in that when the females produce their eggs, the eggs are actually stuck to their anal fin for a period of time, and it's kind of interesting to see that happen. And again, all the organisms that we've mentioned so far, all the fish, the shrimp, these are all relatively peaceful fish, and so they get along well with one another in a 5-gallon or a 10-gallon. All right, for the 20-gallon, I'm going to switch gears a little bit here for you. If you have never kept cichlids before, there's a couple that you could definitely keep in a 20-gallon that would offer so much personality. Now, this next one isn't necessarily one species, and that is the shell-dwelling cichlids. They stay relatively small. Most of them max out at around 1.5 to 2 inches. There are different types. Some of the better ones for beginners are Neolamprologus multifasciatus, otherwise known as the Maltese. That's the fish that we have here behind me in this 50-gallon lowboy. Great fish, full of personality. Now they're going to rearrange your sand. They're going to rearrange the decorations. So if you really, really like that aspect of fish keeping, maybe these aren't for you. But the Maltese are great. Neolamprologus similis are a really good option. The brevis are a great option. Again, we've got species profiles on all these fish, plus way more down in the description. But it's just a fun tank to watch, and to watch these fish interact with one another. Now, the other option, again, we're going to stay on the cichlid theme for our 20 gallons for species only, but some of the rock-dwelling cichlids are really cool. One of my favorites are these. This is the Julidochromis ornatus. Check out these colors with the yellow and the black. They don't get super large. Maybe going to max out at around 3 inches or so. Tolerate one another fairly well, just like the Maltese and the similis that I mentioned before in a 20-gallon aquarium. All of these fish are perfectly capable of breeding in a 20-gallon, provided that you meet the water parameter requirements for them, and they just offer a lot of unique personality to your fish tank. You've got the Transcriptus as well with this checkerboard pattern. This is a really cool fish. We've also done Leylupi, this really beautiful orange fish. All of them, again, really nice options for a species-only tank. Now, again, I want to be clear here, especially with the 20-gallon aquariums. Find a species of a shell dweller or a species of a rock dweller and keep just that one species and let them breed. Let them really show what they can do in a 20-gallon tank in terms of their personality. Now, for this next category, I'm going to list it as kind of like the 40-gallon breeder up to the 55-gallon. I've got two options for you there. There are probably a lot more that we have kept, but two really came to mind here. One of them is the pearl gourami. We had a group of pearl gourami, or have a group of pearl gourami in our 55-gallon aquarium. And a lot of people don't know this, but there's actually two different types of pearl gouramis. There's your standard, but then there are the gold pearl gouramis, and you can mix and match those two. And in our 55-gallon, we had about 18 of these in the tank. The nice thing is they're one of the few gouramis where you can keep multiples in an aquarium and they're not aggressive towards one another. Don't try this with the blues, the golds, or the opalines. You're going to have a big problem. Same thing with the dwarf gouramis. Most likely that's not going to work out very well either. But the pearl gouramis were just really awesome in that aquarium because, again, these are fish that will inhabit different parts of the aquarium. They'll pick at the substrate for food. They'll go through all your decorations and swim in and out and go to the top and the middle and the bottom of the aquarium. And they have amazing color and personality. Now the next one, we're back on our cichlid theme, and I think if you haven't kept Mbuna cichlids before, give them a try. Again, there's lots and lots and lots of different Mbuna cichlids, but for a 40 to 55 gallon, sometimes it's fun just to settle on one species. Now this isn't a super huge tank for Mbuna. We have to keep that in mind, and so we're going to stay away from some of the more aggressive Mbuna. And a couple of suggestions I have for you that I absolutely love keeping in a species-only tank. One are the Pseudotropheus solosi. I love these fish because, well, you get two different colors in the same fish. The males have this blue color with the dark blue stripes, and the females have more of a yellowish orange color. And so even though it's the same species, they look different, and they're generally really easy to keep in a 40 to 55 gallon aquarium. The other one I really love are the rusty cichlids. If you keep this fish on a lighter substrate, they show a lot more purple and a little bit less brown, but either way, they are really beautiful fish, and the nice thing is they're not super aggressive. And of course, you've got the standby, the yellow lab, really great fish as well. You get a lot of nice yellow color, and so those are all really good options for a species-only tank in that 40 to 55 gallon aquarium. All right, let's say you got that 75 gallon aquarium. Obviously, we're getting more and more options because all the fish we talked about so far could go in a 75 gallon. But for a 75 gallon, I start looking at things like the electric blue acara. This is a wonderful fish. Again, great personality, not very aggressive, and that electric blue color will absolutely shine from across the room. Being a relatively peaceful fish, you can keep a group of these in a 75 gallon. And in fact, I actually had a group of around 10 of them in a 40 breeder before we moved them to the 125, but easily can be kept in a 75 gallon. The other one I think we probably shouldn't forget, and it's going to be really different than the other fish, that's goldfish. Right? You can, again, here there are different types of goldfish, different variants, but the fancy goldfish, you can keep a few in a 75 gallon. And in fact, the 75 gallon that we have right back there has 5 fancy goldfish, and they're about the size of a golf ball right now. They're going to get larger. A lot of people underestimate the size of the aquarium you need for goldfish because they don't realize how big they can get, because at the store, usually they're fairly small, but they can get fairly large, and around 3 to 5 in a 75 gallon is a pretty good estimate. But again, super peaceful fish. The nice thing about the goldfish is, generally speaking, they're going to do well at room temperature, so you might not need a heater depending on the temperature of your room. Easy to feed, relatively hardy as well. And so the goldfish can be a really good option. Now, I'm going to switch gears here a little bit with the 75 gallon because I want to make 2 honorable mentions. Technically, it's a species-only tank, but you're only keeping 1 fish in that aquarium, but it might be well worth it. So a couple that come to mind for me in a 75, one is the Midas cichlid. We actually had a pair. We had Roger and Ruby in a 75 gallon. They wound up giving us many, many, many hundreds of babies and breeding in that tank. But even if I just had one, it would be a really interesting tank because the Midas cichlid, in my opinion, acts a lot like the flower horn. Both of which have great personality. They get fairly large, and so they can max out right around, depending on the fish, anywhere from 10 to 12 inches, maybe slightly larger. And so a 75 gallon for 1 fish is an appropriate size. Both of them show amazing color, just probably some of the best personality of any fish that you can imagine. And they're going to be one of those fish when you walk into the room, they're going to recognize you, they're going to interact with you, and that's pretty cool. Okay, now I want to talk about the 6-foot tank, and this is really going to be, practically speaking, our last category. I'm going to say it's a 125. Obviously, all of these fish would fit in an even larger aquarium, but we're going to end it here with the 125s. Again, a species-only video. If we don't discuss the Oscar, I think that would be a big miss. And in our 125s, we've had Oscars in there before. Now, you can't keep a lot of them in there. We had 3 of them. I don't know if I would have gone much above that. And in fact, a strong argument could be made. You might want even a larger tank, like a 180 or a 210 for multiple Oscars. Could certainly see that as a valid argument. But the Oscar is an amazing fish. Again, full of color. It's going to pop. It's going to be active throughout the entire aquarium. You got different types. You've got the standard Oscar, the red, the tiger Oscar, the albinos. You've got the lemon drop Oscars. You've got longfin Oscars. There's lots of different types, and probably one of the most personable fish you will ever have. Another one for the 125. Again, this is not necessarily a single species, but a category. I know I'm cheating here a little bit, but that's the peacock cichlid. Now, you could certainly have a species-only tank for peacock cichlids, but a lot of people use a 6-foot tank for an all-male peacock cichlid tank. And like I said, there's lots and lots and lots of different species, so we're kind of cheating here. But in terms of a group of fish, this can be a really rewarding fish tank. Now, I will say, for the peacock cichlids, this is not necessarily something for beginners because you really have to know how to manage aggression and just manage a cichlid community. But the types of colors you get from a peacock cichlid tank are absolutely breathtaking. My all-time favorite fish, the Geophagus. If you have a 125, you're pretty much open to any type of Geophagus. You could pick, again, now this is not one species, this is a genus. There are multiple species within the genus Geophagus. You could mix and match them for sure. They tend to look very similar, so if you get any breeding and hybridization, you're gonna have to make sure that you keep those hybrids in the tank and you don't start selling them off because a lot of them will hybridize. But one of my all-time favorites is the Geophagus altifrons. It is the fish that actually serves as the mascot of our entire YouTube channel. It's also the fish that we have in our 150. It is my favorite fish in the fish room, and it shows absolutely stunning colors. And so, like the altifrons, you've got wine milleri, you've got pretty much the whole Cyrtomensis group that is going to show amazing color. You also have the Geophagus tapaho, Steindachnerite, lots of different types. Again, species profiles down in the description below, but that would be an absolutely stunning tank. Certainly in a 125, you could consider doing an angelfish community tank. Now again, as they pair up, you might have some aggression issues, but a 6-foot tank gives you a lot of space. And of course, angelfish are amazing. Again, even with the angelfish, there's lots of different variants, different fin types, and they're just really cool fish that are going to populate the entire tank. Last one, and I think, again, we have to mention these if we're going to be talking about species only, the discus. right? Once you get to the 125s and greater, the discus, let's face it, they have some of the best color of any freshwater fish, tend to be relatively unaggressive. Now they do require some special care in terms of the temperatures. They do tend to do better with a pH that's on the lower side and softer water. And so again, for all the fish that we've mentioned here so far, you're gonna wanna do some homework and figure out, do these fish meet your specific needs and your water parameters? But those are just some of the fish I wanted to mention if you were thinking about doing a species only tank. And it's really cool to watch that happen because fish tend to behave differently in a species only tank than they do in a general community tank. Again, if you want more information on the fish that we've mentioned, check out these videos in the upper and lower right hand corner and then also in the description below. Really appreciate being here and we'll see you in the next one.